I am Risper's son, her only child. She was a very cool and understanding parent. I had a great childhood. I did very well in school, often topping most of my classes. Teachers would call me aside sometimes and tell me, "You have a great future." And that felt nice. Growing up, I was surrounded by my mom's circle of family and friends, and they showered me with love and affection. So I grew up having a sense of self-worth. I was told that every child had a father, but I rarely saw mine. I learned that he was based in Uganda, and later on that he and my mom were separated. He made occasional appearances sometimes, mainly by telephone, and he'd promise the world when he did. He had this way with words. Most times those promises were never kept. But that didn't break me because I had a mom and she never let me down. We went a long time without hearing from my dad when I was growing up. And eventually I joined Light Academy for my high school. Life was great at this point. I had last spoken to my father when I was in class 8 after I had finished my KCPE, and now I was in Form 4. And so in 2015, that very year, when I was doing Form 4, my mother took ill after complications from surgery. After months of fighting, she would pass on 2 weeks after I finished my KCSE. I was unhinged, mainly because I only knew how to be Risper's son. And I wanted to keep living that way. And so I met my dad up country. We buried my mother, and I didn't, and said very little beyond that. I went back to Nairobi and he went back to Kampala. I spent the next year trying to find my footing. At 19, I became a millionaire after selling my mom's Prado. But I'd come to learn that a millionaire is not a person who has 1,000,000 shillings, but somebody who can consistently turn over that 1 million, again and again and again. But for now, it was a light version. And so I used the money to take care of my nanny, auntie, who was now 62 years old, at least until she could plan for her retirement. I released my first studio album under the alias Maximilian. I partied. I chased sweet nothings. And eventually, I joined USIU to study journalism. But ultimately, the money dwindled, and I dropped out after 2 semesters. And in all this time when I didn't know who I was still living as though I was Risper's son, even as a millionaire. But now I had no anchor. I was broke and broken. So eventually I reached out to Dad, and I left for Uganda, late 2017. It didn't take me very long to realize that he was very different. But I guess the happiness was from the fact that I had a new lifeline and I had a new anchor. He had different aspirations for me. My mother was okay with me being whoever I wanted to be, but my father wanted me to become an aeronautical engineer. And I wanted to do right by him, much as I had no love for the discipline. And so for a brief period, it was now my father trying to be a dad to a grown man, and a grown man trying to be a son to his father. I also got the dynamic of 4 added siblings to who I had to be an elder brother. He told me about his life, his challenges, and he loved music and was a dancer. The same love I have for music. He taught me about Uganda and showed me how he worked as a film consultant in the NGO sector. It was a peaceful time. I badly wanted to win this man's approval and his respect, and I wanted to be Jimmy's son. My dad ran into some financial trouble in 2018, pushing me to come back to Nairobi. The nature of my dad's job was consultancy-based, so when money was there, it was available in bulk, but when there were no jobs, then you were basically dry. I went back to Kampala in 2019, back to being Jimmy's son. And the first thing my father said when he saw me is, "You've lost so much weight." I was exhausted. I think life had dealt me all the blows that it possibly could, and I just needed some time to rest. My father would withdraw into his room during the day, and he would take a bottle of spirit. When night came, he'd add another bottle or 2. He staggered, mumbling things that didn't make sense. Some days he yelled in his sleep, agonizingly so. I was just a Kenyan. I was in a new country. I had no job. I had no money. I had nothing going on for me at that time. In fact, I was more of a liability than a benefit. And it was painful seeing your parent go through that. To see somebody that you once considered so great suffer in such a way. It affected me. Some days we'd have a good conversation during the day, but the point in the night where he would leave the house and then come back later on when he's drunk with marks of sand, and it was a bit much. I was probably just as alone as he was, and I sunk into this place where I felt like I had done nothing with my life. I saw young people on the television doing great things with their lives and changing the world at such a young age. And I was like, the version of me in high school was such a courageous guy. But the person I was seeing now was a complete wreck. When that sadness got to me, I started lashing out at my father. It's almost as if I blamed him for my circumstances. I blamed him for the fact that I wasn't in school. I blamed him for the quality of life we were living. I blamed him for the bad. And, I didn't see that I would negate the part where I would see him working and just focus on the drinking aspect. Soon enough, that sadness turned into anger. We would fight a lot. We would throw hurtful words at each other. And eventually, the anger became emptiness. And I attempted to take my own life. Inside, I felt like I was mourning my mother who was gone and my father who was still here. 2020 came with the hope for a new beginning, and I was emotionally drained, but I committed myself to trying and make things work out with that. I went back to university after 3 years of absence. When he dropped me at the university gates, he told me, "Today marks the start of your new life." 2 weeks after, on the eve of my 23rd birthday, he passed on as a result of a prolonged heart illness. His words to me the day before, as he lay on the hospital bed, were, "Happy birthday. I'm sorry I didn't get to see it." I felt like he was saying, "I'm sorry I didn't get to see you. I didn't get to see your life growing up." And so, following his wishes, we cremated his body, and I was now alone. I was an orphan. And that's how my lockdown began. Not as Risper's or Jimmy's son, but as Saleef Nyambok. I've been through a merry-go-round of emotions as I mourn the loss of my parents, mourn the life I had or could have had. I have been, and at times I still am, unsure, insecure, and anxious. I'm finding my way as Saleef, the man I want to be, the boundaries by which I live my life, how I define success, and what family means to me. I am grateful for the 18 years that I had my mother in my life. Her influence on me shows in my focus, my ability to remain stoic in life's difficulty, and my work ethic. I'm grateful for the 3 years I had with my father, that I got to see him through the good, the bad, and the ugly. I am less judgmental of his character and his choices. And in fact, I do see my father in me, in my love for music, in my creativity, in my career choices, and in my ambition. I have since resumed university this year, thanks to family support. I am a second-year journalism student at USIU and an artist using my music to make a positive difference in the community. I have learned that life goes on when your world comes undone, and that one must find an anchor, an internal anchor, to center themselves around, because external anchors will disappoint and die. That choosing gratitude is choosing happiness, and that it is easy for you to judge someone when you're not walking in their shoes. But perhaps most of all is, irrespective of the circumstances, you owe it to yourself to live your best life.